Righto, welcome to episode 10 with RIP 186. Now, I've called the boys in to give me a hand because we're having a massive episode. I've got Craig to my right here. He's going to fit the accelerator pedal for me and the wiper motor up. I've got Jaco over here with the cable X, and he's going to finish the wiring off. My job, the engine bay. So, all going to plan, the end of this episode, we'll have it running.
Alright guys, we're back. Marc's got me onto the wagon. I'm going to show you how to install the cable X box. Now, a lot of guys freak out when they take the lid off and they see that they've got to calibrate these things. I'm going to do a quick little tech video and show you how to set it all up, calibrate it, so it's going to be 100% on your speed. In our box with our cable X, we've received a new Speedo cable. This has got the 5/8 screw-on thread for our HK HT dash. The other end goes down to our Speedo cable X, sorry. So with that set up, it's just ignition, earth, and we've run our signal wire straight up off the speed sensor on our gearbox. That's all up under the dash. I'm just going to screw the Speedo cable straight onto the back of the dash cluster, run it on down the back there, and get ready to install our cable X. Alright guys, I thought it'd be easier just to set up a whiteboard and show you how I worked out the calculation for our cable X. Step one, we need to know what our tyre height is. So I got the old tape measure out there. I measured our tyre at 25 inches high. Now we need to work out our rolling distance of that tyre. So to work, the best way to work that one out is I come up with a formula of 25 inches times high. Now, pi is 3.14. So this is going to work out our rolling circumference of our wheel. So which I come up with 78.5. Alright, now that we've worked that one out, we need to work out how many times that wheel travels over a distance of 1 mile. So for those that don't know, 63,360 inches in 1 mile. 63,360 inches divided by our 78.5, which I come up with 807.1. Now that we've worked that out, we need to work out how many times our speed sensor that is on our transmission is clicking over that pulses or over that distance. So, with that set up, we've got a 4L65E transmission behind our 6-litre and our HG. So, in the instructions, it does state what pulse rates of what sensor goes with which. T56, 17 pulses, 4L60, 4L65 is 40 pulse reluctor. So, we've got our 40 pulses. Our ratio in our diff, because we built a brand new 9-inch, I know for a fact that we put a 3.55 ratio 9-inch in there. So basically with that set up there, we need to times that. So 40 times 3.55 times our rolling circumference of our wheel, which is 807.1, which I come up with 114,608.2, which is our pulses per mile. So that's how many times our speed sensor is pulsing, fluctuating over a distance of 1 mile. So with that set up there, we can work out on which dip switches we need to turn on and off in our instructions that we got with our cable.
Right, we're over here in the warehouse, and I'm just grabbing myself a power steering delete kit. Now, in the kit we get a belt, some bolts, and an idler pulley set up as easy as that. So what we'll do is I'll take you back over to the car and show you guys. What we're going to do is remove the reservoir bracket, bolt this up, throw the belt on its original path, tension up, easy as that, done. Right, so it's time to start putting some liquid in this engine. So what we'll do is use our 530 weight. Apparently that's what we're supposed to use. The guys at Local Auto Pro told me that's what we put in the Street LS. And on the website, I just checked out, it's a Z160. So 160 oil filter, and it tells us it takes all 6 litres. Now we moved the dipstick further up into the block, so it will give us a correct factory measurement of where the oil should be. So we'll fill it up, see where the dipstick ends up. The car's just spent a month on the hoist, and I've fitted the oil filter once the wheels get back on the ground, so not a smart man. Alright, so we've put the 6 in, we'll just check where we're at. Right, if we have a look at the dipstick there, we're probably 10 mil or so past full, so time we fire it up, spreads through, we'll be pretty close, maybe a couple of mil over full, so I'm pretty happy with that. I reckon a little bit extra oil is better than a little, not quite enough. Righto, so we're on the engine bay at the moment, we've got ourselves a battery, so we're going to leave the battery in the factory battery tray. Obviously we'll have to clamp that over shortly. Also, out of a VX Commodore, we've got ourselves an airbox. Now, it's going to take a little modification. We roughly sit this in position. We're going to sit up fairly high. Now, it's only got a lump on the lower corner, so if we can slightly trim it out, lower it down, seal it up on the inner guard there, we should be able to create ourselves an easy and cheap airbox. So what I'll do is a few modifications, and we'll see what it comes up like. Alright, so we're getting close to the finish off the engine bay. What I've done is the airbox, as we mentioned earlier, just cut the bottom corner out now. It's taken me 3 or 4 goes, so just do the old cut a little bit, keep marking, cut a bit more. So that's been cut out of the bottom of it. We've shaped it, as you can see there, the same shape as the inner guard. Now if we swing it down, mounts in there and it fits really snug. As you see, we've shaped it right round. Now I've got me boys to make a boss, just to hold it. It's the aluminium boss there at the end. 50 mil long with a bit of chamfered edge on it. Bolt it from underneath, we'll bolt the airbox down, we'll hold it nice and tight and in location. So obviously so you can still pop the top on and off, but it won't move around and it should still suck air from the original ports at the front of the airbox.
Alright, so I'm getting ready to prep up the wiper motor to go underneath the dash here. So what you need to do is remove this vacuum pump for your washer bottle. Got to pull the earth strap off. I've already unscrewed it, make it a bit quicker. Pull all this assembly off. Whoop. So you don't need that anymore. That's going to be located somewhere else in the car. What you do, remove that too. A little adapter. Slides on. There's 2 grub screws that go in either side to lock it onto that shaft. So let's put a little bit of Loctite on them. Right, so now the wiper motor arm is ready to go on that on the underside of the car. Now the other thing is, when you remove the motor, don't get rid of these washers. So there's a little rubber washer that are on the underside of the motor. These are still used, so when you mount it up, they go back on there. So obviously, HKT staff have made this kit, and there's a little billet cap that will go on there underneath your dash, and you'll be away. Let's go and mount this up. Alrighty, so I've got it all fitted up, got to mount it underneath the dash. So just remember that we've got to make sure the motor's to the passenger side of the car. So one of the boys is underneath there, on the engine bay. We'll get them to screw it all up. Alright, so that's nipped up now. Now another thing you have to do is, obviously the plug isn't going to fit in here. So when Jake comes back in to wire it up a bit more, I'll get him to nick all these off and just put some push-on terminals onto those pins there, so she'll all get powered up and be ready to go.
Well, with
Right, I mounted the pedal. The only way I can get under there is to make a bracket and weld it up underneath the dash here. If you have a look down here, got to weld it up under there. Still got good pedal movement. Now it's time for Jake to wire it in, make sure it works.
Alright, so I'm in the back of the wagon. We're talking seat belts now. Obviously here, we've got nothing over the shoulder, lap belt only. So what we need to do is we need to go to a fully retractable seat belt to meet ADR approval. Now, we go to the front firstly, we've got nothing. The old 1969 wagon, there's nothing there. Now what I've done is we've replaced it here with our Restraint Technology Australia belt. Now you can buy it from Repco, Burson's, Autopro, all your good suppliers will supply the Australian approved, Australian made retractable belt. Now, I've fitted one already on the passenger side to show you guys. Now, factory location and same down at the lower point here. So if we can squeeze our cameraman down to the lower point there. Right, so we just picked up factory location. We'll do the same on the driver's side, and then with the lap belt in the center there and your two center and your outer anchor points into the middle, pick up factory location. Now, where the problem comes into it is in the rear. Now, there's nothing here to grab from, so consult your engineer. I need to consult with mine of how we're going to do the over-the-shoulder retractable belt. So I will do that later on down the track. Before I drive the car, we'll go to full retractable in the front to make sure it's safe to drive, and then later on down the track, we'll speak to engineer, probably go and see our engineer, and we'll work out what we're going to do in the rear. Alright, so when fitting the retractable seat belt, check the instructions and make sure you use the new bolts. The other ones, we've got a lot of fatigue, a lot of age about them, so make sure we put new bolts in there, shims around the correct way. Alright, so we're about to fit the temperature gauge. Now, all I've done is buy the VDO gauge. VDO been around forever and you know it's reliable, and sort of the look should suit the old car. So, got the VDO gauge, bought a little cheap bracket that come with it to save making one. So all I'm going to do is a couple of screws underneath, beside the speaker there. The driver should still be able to see that fine. It's out of everyone's way, and then Jake can wire it up. Alright, so we've got the boys inside doing a little bit of work. At the moment, you can see the front sag. Now, we haven't adjusted the coilovers at all, so what I'll do is we'll jack it up, whip the wheels off, adjust the Vikings up, put the wheels on, we'll drop it back down, and we'll try and get to a legal ride height. Alright, so I've jacked the car up, the wheels are off. Now, it was really hard to get the camera underneath to show you guys how to adjust the shock. So what I've done is, I'm out here in Maddie's area who does the front ends. Now, to adjust it up, all I want to do is bring the ride height up. So all we need to do is wind up our coilover. Now, to do that in the car, it is going to be really, really hard in the car. So get some CRC or a lube or any kind of lubricant you can. Spray down the top of the thread. So in here, give it a really good douse. Your spanners, which will be supplied in any kit that you do buy with the Viking coilovers from the rod shop. And it's as simple as just adjusting the spanner, so adjusting the nut. So what I've done in that car there, I come up about 25 mil. So leave your bottom nut down where it was. So leave that to where it is. Set up roughly 25 mil. Take a measurement. Once you're happy with the measurement there, bring your lock nut up. You will have 2 spanners in your kit. Put your second spanner in. Just lay that over to make it a little bit easier. And just make sure we lock it up nice and tight. So once it's locked up nice and tight, it's easy done. The second thing I'm going to set in there to make sure it is correct is a compression rebound. Now, in the instructions, which also will come with your coilover kit with Viking, it will give you a recommendation for street use, drag use, gives you a lot of different setups. So we're going to go just, recommended for street use. So front, compression 1 to 4, rebound 4 to 8. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, Now I'm setting it there because the last car I drove with an LS, and that was around about where I felt comfortable. So set it where you think, take the car for a drive, but remember the best thing is anyone at home can adjust this. So if you want the car a bit softer, it doesn't quite feel right, just get under yourself, count the clicks. Once you're happy with it, they've got a little grub screw. Now the little grub screw is down in there, Allen key headed one. Once you're happy, final time, nip that up, done. Right, so we've got the car back in the air on the hoist. Now the oxy sensors have turned up, so we'll just put the last one in. I've already fitted the other three. Quick nip up. And just make sure when you plug the wiring, and make sure it's going to be nowhere it will get caught with anything or will get hot. Righto, also while we're in the air, something I haven't done before. Now before we test drive, you must have your handbrake fully adjusted up. Now it's a parking brake, but also used as an emergency brake. So if something breaks in the lines or a caliper isn't fitted properly or have an issue somewhere and I lose my pedal, at least I've got a backup option on the first test drive. So best way to adjust it out, flick your rubber grommet out. Now inside there, if you swing the camera up, I don't know if you'll pick up the teeth in there or not, but there's a little setup with a cog in there. It's really hard to see, but a little flat blade screwdriver. Just spin the dial and keep rotating the wheel until you can hear a little bit of drag. Now that drag will be your pads just coming out onto the inner of the drum there. Now the camera picks that up, you can start to hear it now, they're starting to drag. So the shoes, the handbrake, got slight drag, so should be pretty good there. So once we've got a little bit of drag on both sides, we'll let it down. Hopefully today the boys can get this thing running. And when we test drive, at least now we know we should have a safe handbrake.
Alrighty, so there's the last thing I want to do before we test the motor and power it all up. I'm going to pull the wiper blades off just to make sure when we do power it up that they don't overextend and damage the paintwork or go too far. I'll pop these off.
Right, so we're in the vehicle here at the moment. The Quicksilver B&M shift is all set up. So obviously we don't need the old 3 on the tree anymore. So what we're going to do to knock that out, we'll sit the dash back out of the way so don't hit that. Lower the column down, just get a center punch pin. Down through the arm there. Now, it will be fairly firm, so just make sure you are propping the steering wheel with your hands, but that's all it takes. So take that out, knock the pin out of it, and we're done. So keep it for a souvenir, throw it out, do what you want, but obviously now we've got a lot more room now. We can reach the handbrake comfortably, and we've got our new style shifter. Alright, so the wiring's all sorted. We're not far from hooking the battery up, so what I'm going to do is throw some fuel in it. Now the tank holds about 62 litres, I think they are 65 litres, so if we put 40 litres of fuel in it, we should give a rough indication how accurate our fuel gauge is. Alright, so we've got a bit of an issue here. Doesn't sound like it's going to start up now. We've hooked all the power up, it probably should fire. So Jake's in the car. So if you are having starter motor issues and it's a new engine or it's an engine you just fitted, bar the engine over to make sure the engine's free, which we've just done. It's winding over by hand, fine. So next step, put the multimeter on, get Jake to hit the key. Right, so we've got enough power there that it should at least crank the engine slow. So what we will do to make sure our power feed's okay at the starter motor, with the multimeter, double check it down on the starter motor. So one, the battery terminal. Secondly, when he hits the start wire to make sure we're getting a decent feed down at the starter. Alright, so we've just checked our voltages. We've got a few issues, so we've got a faulty starter motor. It's the second-hand one that come with the engine. I think it come with the engine's one laying around. So back on the hoist, we're going to have to whip the starter motor out and see what's wrong with it. Never a dull moment. Alright, so we've got the starter motor out. I've got myself a jump battery set up just here. So we'll just test it on the ground before we go any further. So if we have a look down here at the drive, you'll see it does throw out. It's not really turning. Now, that's testing the whole starter overall. Now, if we just want to check the motor only, we can always hook direct power just straight to the motor, which is the bottom terminal. So, and as we can see, it's motoring really well. So it's got an issue in the solenoid there. So what we'll do now is go out the back, hopefully wrap through the LS pole, find ourselves another starter. Before I put it on, I'm going to check it. Right, so we've gone to the archives of the setup. I found one here, I've tested it. It's done exactly the same thing. Now after testing it, I've looked underneath, no good, it says setup only. So probably should have read what it said first. Now, in all our stuff, we have a later model one. Now, everything's the same, except for the solenoid stands up a little bit straighter. So if we have a look, the original one to the new one, if we can see there, and also the start wires, got a push-on terminal, not a bolt-on one. So if it's a different make and model, not the extractors we've got in here, just check for clearance if you are going to change that, but it should be fine. Also, we need a push-on terminal, but we still will check it first. Righto, so we found ourselves a winner. So we'll change the wiring before I put it in. It'll be a lot easier to do now. So out with the eyelet terminal, in with the push-on terminal, then we'll try and prop it back up, do it up, and we'll try again. Right, we've got the new starter bolted up, new terminals on, it's all tight now. The extractors are still laying off, so we just want to quickly check it to make sure it's all good. So we'll just push the battery terminal on. It's on there nice and firm, but not done up. We'll just see how we go. Perfect. So onto our third starter motor, it's all good. So I'll remove the battery terminal now, I'll put all the plug leads back on, do the extractors back up, roll it back out, and we'll go back and get our wiring guru.
Alright guys, we went to go fire up the old girl. Went and checked all the fuel pump and everything like that. Marc had actually wired the fuel pump bearing around the wrong way. So we rectified that. Now we've got fuel. We fired the old girl up for the first time. Noticed that it didn't do, we had a couple of little oil leaks where the transmission cooler was. So we'll tidy that up and then we'll fire it up again. Plug HP tuners in there to make sure everything's all honky-dory. And yeah, she should be all right to put back together and Marc can take it for its first voyage.
Alright, give us a reverse, Jake. Yep, neutral. Drive. Yep. Perfect. Alright, so we've got gears, we've got wheels turning, the engine's been on, the thermo fans are kicking in and out, so we've got it up to temp. Everything's looking really good. So that'll be a wrap for episode 10. Like and subscribe below, there's a lot more to come. Thanks for watching. See you guys again soon.